For over 20 years, the marriage of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson stood as a cornerstone of the Spider-Man mythos. Their relationship, marked by trials and triumphs, embodied a mature evolution for a character often defined by his youthful struggles. From the proposals to the wedding, and through countless challenges to their vows, fans had watched Peter and MJ grow, evolve, and stand together. Their union represented a level of stability and adulthood that few other comic book heroes were allowed to maintain, signaling that even in the chaotic world of a superhero, true love could endure. It was a partnership, a bedrock of Peter's identity, profoundly influencing his decisions and motivations. This deep, personal connection was, for many, the heart of Peter Parker's story. Then, in the mid-2000s, Peter Parker found himself at a precipice unlike any before. Aunt May, his beloved guardian, lay dying, struck down by a sniper's bullet intended for him. Desperate, Peter turned to anyone and everyone for help, even Dr. Strange. But no earthly or mystical power could save her. In his darkest hour, a shadowy figure emerged, offering a deal. It was a pact with Mephisto, the demonic entity, who offered to save Aunt May's life, but at an unspeakable cost. This wasn't just a challenge, it was an existential crisis, forcing Peter to confront the ultimate sacrifice. His desperation, combined with the impossible situation, led to a decision that would unravel decades of continuity and fundamentally reshape his world. The story that followed was One More Day, a four-issue arc that ignited unprecedented controversy. Written by J. Michael Straczynski and illustrated by Joe Quesada, it depicted Peter and Mary Jane making the agonizing decision to accept Mephisto's offer. The price? Their marriage, and the collective memory of it, would be erased from history. Aunt May would live, and the world would forget Peter Parker's true identity, but the love that had defined Peter for so long would simply vanish. It was an editorial move driven by a desire to unencumber Spider-Man, to return him to a more youthful, relatable status quo, removing the baggage of marriage. The immediate backlash from fans was intense, divisive, and relentless, shattering long-held assumptions about the character's narrative direction. The architect behind this seismic shift was Marvel's editor-in-chief, Joe Quesada. His vision was clear: Spider-Man, in his view, was at his most compelling as a single, struggling everyman. The marriage to Mary Jane, while beloved by many, was perceived as making Peter less relatable to new, younger readers and limiting storytelling opportunities. Quesada believed that to truly reset the character and recapture his youthful essence, the marriage had to go. He argued it was essential for the longevity and accessibility of the character, hoping to bring Peter back to a classic state where he perpetually struggled with rent, relationships, and responsibilities. This editorial directive, while controversial, was a bold attempt to define the future of Marvel's flagship hero. And so, in late 2007, from the ashes of One More Day, rose Brand New Day. The first issue, Amazing Spider-Man number 546, plunged readers into a radically altered world. Peter Parker was single, living in a new apartment, struggling to make ends meet, and back to being a freelance photographer for the Daily Bugle. There was no memory of his marriage to Mary Jane. She was merely an old flame, now living on the West Coast, occasionally seen but never central. Aunt May was alive and well, but her husband, J. Jonah Jameson Sr., was not in the picture. The slate was wiped clean, promising a fresh start not just for Peter, but for the entire creative direction of the series. The intent was to capture the energy and spontaneity of early Spider-Man stories. One of the most distinctive features of Brand New Day was its innovative, albeit challenging, creative approach. Instead of a single writer, Marvel implemented a web of writers model. A rotating team of acclaimed talents, including Dan Slott, Mark Guggenheim, Bob Gale, and Zeb Wells, would take turns crafting distinct, interconnected stories. This meant Amazing Spider-Man would ship 3 times a month, offering a rapid-fire succession of new adventures. The idea was to keep the series dynamic, prevent creative burnout, and ensure a constant influx of fresh ideas. It was an ambitious experiment, designed to revitalize the storytelling and maintain a high pace, but it also presented unique challenges in terms of narrative consistency and character voice. In this Brand New Day, Peter's life was a whirlwind of familiar struggles and new dynamics. He was back to being the quintessential underdog, perpetually late, struggling with bills, and juggling his superheroics with everyday responsibilities. His social circle expanded, introducing new friends and potential love interests, most notably the forensic scientist Carly Cooper. Peter briefly lived with Flash Thompson and Harry Osborn, reflecting a return to a more youthful, communal living situation. This reboot aimed to strip away the perceived baggage of his past, making him feel more like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man of old, a hero who, despite his powers, remained deeply human and relatable in his daily life. It was a calculated effort to emphasize his common struggles. To complement Peter's fresh start, Brand New Day introduced a host of new characters, both allies and adversaries. On the villain front, Mr. Negative quickly became a prominent figure, a crime lord with dark powers and a surprising connection to Martin Lee, a benevolent benefactor. Jackpot, a new costumed hero, made her debut, leading Peter through a complex relationship. Menace, the daughter of Councilman Berryman, transformed into a goblin-like villain, adding a new dimension to the Goblin legacy. These new creations injected fresh blood into Spider-Man's rogues gallery and supporting cast, allowing the creative teams to explore new storylines without being entirely beholden to decades of established continuity. The goal was to build a vibrant, new corner of the Marvel Universe. A significant aspect of Peter's Brand New Day was his return to the Daily Bugle, albeit with some dramatic changes. J. Jonah Jameson, still very much the cantankerous editor, surprisingly became mayor of New York City, opening up new political avenues for the series. Robbie Robertson took the reins as editor-in-chief, offering a more stable, albeit still demanding, environment. Peter was once again the struggling freelance photographer, desperately trying to sell photos of Spider-Man to keep a roof over his head. This re-established Peter's classic dynamic with the Bugle, emphasizing his financial woes and the constant struggle to balance his two lives, a core element that many fans felt had been diluted over time. It brought back a fundamental aspect of his identity. With a rotating team of writers came an equally diverse array of artistic talent, shaping the visual identity of Brand New Day. Artists like Salvador La Roca, Phil Jimenez, Chris Bacalo, and John Romita Jr. each brought their distinct styles to the pages of Amazing Spider-Man. This approach meant that the look and feel of the book could shift dramatically from one arc to the next, offering a fresh visual experience with each new story. While some readers appreciated the artistic variety, others found it jarring, craving a consistent visual aesthetic for Peter Parker's world. Nevertheless, this rotating roster of artists ensured that Brand New Day was never visually stale, constantly experimenting with different tones and atmospheres. Each artist left their unique mark on Peter's evolving saga. Despite the best efforts to create a Brand New Day, the specter of one more day loomed large over the entire initiative. The controversial retcon, the erased marriage, and the deal with Mephisto remained a contentious topic among fans. While editorial aimed for a clean slate, the knowledge of what had been sacrificed for this new status quo colored many readers' perceptions. Every new love interest, every moment of Peter's renewed struggle, was viewed through the lens of what was lost. The series grappled with this legacy, occasionally hinting at forgotten memories or parallel realities, but largely pressed forward, attempting to establish new relevance. It was a constant balancing act between embracing the future and acknowledging the past, a tension that defined the era for many. As Brand New Day progressed, the Gauntlet storyline marked a significant turning point, aiming to inject new life into classic villains. Over several arcs, iconic foes like Electro, Mysterio, Sandman, and Kraven the Hunter were revitalized, given new depth and dangerous twists. This arc culminated in Grim Hunt, a dark and intense story featuring the return of Kraven's family, seeking revenge on Spider-Man. These arcs were praised for their strong characterization and exciting action, often cited as some of the high points of the Brand New Day era. They proved that even with a reset status quo, compelling, character-driven narratives could emerge, often by recontextualizing established elements. It was a successful effort to bridge the past and present. The primary goal of Brand New Day was to make Spider-Man more accessible and attractive to new readers, particularly those who might have found decades of continuity intimidating. Marvel hoped that by resetting Peter's personal life, they could lower the barrier to entry. Sales figures for Amazing Spider-Man did see an initial boost following One More Day and the launch of Brand New Day, suggesting a segment of readers, both new and old, were curious about the new direction. However, sustaining this momentum proved challenging, and the series continued to navigate a complex landscape of fan expectations and market trends. While it undoubtedly brought in some fresh eyes, it also alienated a significant portion of longtime readership, creating a polarized fan base. Brand New Day asked a fundamental question: could Spider-Man truly remain relevant and fresh without the emotional maturity and long-term consequences that Peter's marriage had brought? For some, the return to a perpetually single, struggling hero felt like a step backward, abandoning the growth Peter had achieved. For others, it was a necessary reinvention, bringing the character closer to his iconic, more relatable roots. The debate often hinged on whether Spider-Man was a character defined by stagnation or growth, by eternal youth or adult evolution. This era highlighted the tension between editorial directives aimed at broader appeal and the desires of a dedicated, long-term fanbase for continuous character development. The Brand New Day era officially concluded in late 2010 with the storyline Big Time, transitioning into a new phase for Amazing Spider-Man, though many of its core tenets remained. The rotating writer model eventually gave way to Dan Slott becoming the sole ongoing writer, a position he would hold for a remarkable 10 years. Peter's single status, the existence of characters like Carly Cooper, and the overall fresh start mood continued to define the series for years. While the initial intensity of the One More Day backlash slowly subsided, the foundational changes of Brand New Day set the stage for much of Spider-Man's subsequent decade, proving how deeply its roots had been planted, for better or worse. It reshaped the landscape for the character's journey. Even with the marriage erased, Mary Jane Watson's presence never truly vanished. Her character occasionally reappeared in Peter's life, sometimes as a distant friend, sometimes as a reminder of a past that no one else remembered. Her eventual return as a more prominent figure, and the slow, often complicated, re-establishment of her romantic connection with Peter, became a significant narrative thread in the years following Brand New Day. This demonstrated that even a deal with Mephisto couldn't entirely sever the enduring bond between Peter and MJ in the eyes of many creators and readers. The character of Mary Jane was simply too integral to Peter's history and future to be relegated to the sidelines indefinitely, underscoring the power of their iconic relationship. Brand New Day remains one of the most polarizing eras in Spider-Man history. It was a bold, editorial-driven experiment to redefine a beloved character for a new generation. While it successfully introduced new characters, invigorated classic villains, and provided a platform for diverse artistic talent, it did so at the cost of alienating a significant portion of its longtime readership. It highlighted the delicate balance between preserving established continuity and striving for contemporary relevance. The saga of Brand New Day is a testament to the enduring passion of comic book fans and the perennial challenge of evolving iconic characters while respecting their rich past. Its legacy is not just in the stories it told, but in the fierce debate it continues to provoke about the nature of Spider-Man. Ultimately, Brand New Day did achieve some of its goals. It diversified the creative talent on the book, sped up the publishing schedule, and certainly generated immense discussion. It brought new energy, even if that energy was often fueled by controversy. But it also forged a lasting divide within the Spider-Man fanbase, between those who embraced the fresh start and those who viewed it as an unforgivable betrayal of Peter Parker's character development. This era proved that while you can fundamentally alter a hero's status quo, you can't erase the deep emotional connection readers have to their journey. The echoes of Brand New Day still resonate today, a constant reminder of a time Marvel dared to dismantle the very foundations of its most iconic hero, all in pursuit of a truly brand new tomorrow.